siblings, I am full of hope and joy about the regionalization legislation submitted by the Standing Committee on Central Conferences. I'm excited about the legislation because it's a demonstration of our Wesleyan theology in action. Some members of the Standing Committee on Central Conferences, the COnnectional Table, and the grassroots Christmas Covenant movement decided to work together and engage in holy conferencing. As a result of their holy conferencing, they created the regionalization legislation that was submitted by the Standing Committee on Central Conferences. The very method by which the legislation came into being was a manifestation of the practice of our Wesleyan theology. Further, the legislation itself embodies our theology. Rather than centering structures, rules, and regulations, the legislation centers relationships, mission, and ministry.
Being a COnnectional church, it is all about mission. We all live in very different contexts in terms of legal and financial systems, history, culture, perception of life, geography, and so on. We witness to the one gospel of Jesus Christ in these different settings. What works in the US is not necessarily needed in Africa. What reaches the hearts of people in the Philippines might completely miss the needs of Europeans. To be more relevant to people and society in our various contexts, we need freedom to shape our churches accordingly. And to stay together as a COnnectional church, we need trust rather than detailed regulations.
Regionalization just allows us to maintain our Wesleyan identity while living our diversity. I think John Wesley was somebody who wanted to share grace across cultures, across races, and across social classes. And that grace would have been experienced in different ways, and yet for the glory of God, for all human beings created in God's image.
This legislation continues the church on a journey of atoning for the legacy of colonialism and eliminating the practices of colonialism in all of its manifestations.
A regionalização traz benefícios para nós, para as várias regiões e para nós na nossa região como continente africano. Porque, primeiro, quando sentamos como conferência, iremos olhar aquilo que será a melhor forma de respondermos à comissão de Jesus Cristo de irmos para todo o mundo e fazermos discípulos de Jesus Cristo. Mas também tem um outro benefício, é que teremos mais tempo em que estaremos a discutir os nossos assuntos como continente. Teremos mais tempo de tomarmos decisões e recomendações que irão ajudar melhor a nossa igreja em África.
Each region can do and expand its mission based on its socio-cultural context and become more effective without losing our connection and maximizing our resources. Hence, stewardship will also be strengthened in its region so that dependency to the general church will be eliminated. And that's very important in the life and ministry of our church.
L'Afrique, notre continent, est un continent qui a connu l'évangélisation missionnaire et qui voudrait vivre maintenant l'évangélisation dans les contextes culturels. Voilà pourquoi nous adoptons, nous acceptons la régionalisation pour que l'évangile soit vécu dans les contextes culturels de peuples africains. Vous savez qu'avec l'évangélisation, la mission, nous avons besoin de vivre toutes ces réalités ecclésiastiques dans les contextes africains. Alors, la mission, l'évangélisation seront promues lorsque nous sommes dans la régionalisation.
We're in a time where the world desperately needs the love of Jesus Christ, and we can trust each other to handle our ministry and set our priorities in ways that are relevant for the culture and the context that we're in. Africa is different from the United States, which is different from the Philippines, which is different from Europe. And so we can trust each other to hear the calling of the Holy Spirit and to manage our ministry, and then that'll help us with an equity issue. When we come together as a general conference, we want to come together and do the work that benefits the whole and not waste time dealing with business and other matters that are just really focused on one part of the world. Because every part of the world is important, and we want our ministry to address the whole globe. That's the power of being a true global connection. And so I'm excited about regionalization for that reason.
This is why this legislation fills me with hope and joy for my beloved denomination. And I hope that rather than relying solely on my testimony or the testimony of anyone else, you will read the legislation for yourself and then join me in praying for God's discernment as the General Conference delegates engage in holy conferencing about this and all the legislation that will be before them.